I'm not a revolutionary.
His calculations are correct. The Empire is dying.
Order will vanish. Wars will be endless.
Hey guys, Pete here. We've got a full-length teaser for Foundation from Apple TV Plus, and I'm going to break that down today. We also got our first detailed description of the series, which reads, when revolutionary Dr. Hari Seldon predicts the impending fall of the Empire, he and a band of loyal followers venture to the far reaches of the galaxy to establish the Foundation in an attempt to rebuild and preserve the future of civilization. Enraged by Hari's claims, the ruling Cleons, a long line of Emperor clones, fear their grasp on the galaxy may be weakening as they're forced to reckon with the potential reality of losing their legacy forever. I had a pair of reactions watching this video for the first time. First, this looks ambitious and amazing. Second, there's going to be some major changes from the source material, which may not be a bad thing. There's a long list of reasons why this series has never been adapted for the screen, which I discussed in detail in my breakdown for the first trailer. Translating Asimov's ideas in a way that would be entertaining for a TV audience was always going to be a challenge because there's several time jumps and new characters are constantly being introduced. The question was never if they would make some changes, but rather can they make the right changes so that it'll work as an entertaining TV show, but stay true to the overarching themes of Asimov's work. So I'll break down what we see here without giving away any major spoilers for the ending of the series, which does rely heavily on twists along the way. At the end, I'll discuss what I think is going on with some of the changes and what that might mean for the adaptation. The teaser opens with a shot of what appears to be the Emperor's palace on the capital city of Trantor. The clue here beyond its size is the gardens. The Empire's capital is an ecumenopolis. The entire surface is built up, it's covered with man-made structures, and the Imperial Palace was the only place where you might see green spaces like this. Inside, we see an old man approaching an area where clones are produced, an Eto Demerzel, who served as a first minister to the Emperor in the books. Here she tells the eldest of the living clones that he can't be there. He responds that he can't be the first to want to see his youngest self, and that cuts to a sequence of someone flipping a coin where we get a look at the Emperor clones at different ages. The old man is Brother Dusk, and they're all clones of the Emperor Cleon. There are 3 versions at any given time. The youngest is Dawn, and the middle is Day. The showrunner, David S. Goyer, has explained that the different versions have an interesting relationship. The older one raises and nurtures the younger, who can literally see an older version of themselves, which is reassuring in a way. At the same time, there's a struggle with each one wanting to prove they're unique. By this time, there have been 14 of them, all living in the shadow of the original. Brother Day says, our genetic dynasty has reigned for almost 4 centuries. And as he's talking, we see a fleet of ships attacking a planet. This isn't something that happens in the book, so it's not clear why the attack is going on or what this planet is. He continues, the might of the Imperium has brought peace to thousands of worlds, but the beliefs of one man now threaten the Empire's very existence. The man he's talking about is Hari Seldon, and his beliefs, in air quotes, are based on the science of psychohistory. A couple of days ago, I put out a video on psychohistory if you're new to the series and want to learn about it, or if it's just been a while and you want a refresher. We hear Hari Seldon say, I'm not a revolutionary, which is in contrast to the logline that I read at the beginning of the video, but it is true. Hari Seldon has seen that the Empire will fall, and that's predicted by psychohistory. His main goal is not to upset the order, but to minimize the suffering that's coming after things fall apart. He wants to get humanity back on track quicker and establishes the foundations to help accelerate the rise of a new empire. Later in the trailer, we hear him describe what's coming. He says, order will vanish, wars will be endless. You can't save yourselves, but you can save your legacy. Beyond the mention of legacy, this is pretty consistent with how things play out in the books. The fall of the Empire is supposed to lead to 30,000 years of barbarism and chaos. Seldon thinks he can shorten that to 1,000 years using psychohistory, but no one understands it at this point, and there's no real motivation for the people in power to listen to him. That's where Gaal Dornick comes in. She's a brilliant mathematician that Hari hired to help him work on psychohistory. In the first trailer, we saw her journey from her homeworld, and we saw her meeting with Seldon for the first time. There's a couple more glimpses of that here. In this trailer, we see her looking at the equations through the prime radiant and saying his calculations are correct. The Empire is dying. So Seldon has this situation where he can see what's going to happen. No one really wants to listen to him. No one really understands what he's saying. And Gaal Dornick can actually understand the math. She's there to start working with him, but still seems impartial since she hasn't started yet. This all lends credence to her professional opinion on the equations. Where it looks like the TV show will diverge from the source material, it looks like there's a lot more tension in the Empire and possibly even some revolutionary stuff going on Trantor. We hear Gaal tell the Emperor that only the psychohistorians can shorten the darkness. And we hear the Emperor say that Seldon has a following, people that hinge their hopes on every word that Seldon utters. Words have a way of fanning into wildfires. I mentioned that there wasn't much motivation for the people in power to listen to Seldon. In the books, no one believes the Empire will fall because there are no blatant warning signs. They call Hari Raven Seldon because he's issuing warnings, and they just don't see a collapse as possible. Obviously, the warnings could cause problems for those in charge, and based on what we see here, it looks like they may add that element to the TV show. We also get a couple more looks at Terminus and Salvor Hardin. In the timeline of the books, Salvor is born on the planet where the Foundation is established and becomes the mayor about 50 years after they arrive there. We get a couple shots of the planet that look like they were filmed in Iceland and our first look at some of the people living there. I presume the time jump is still going to happen, so these parts of the trailer happen decades after the scenes we saw with Gaal and Hari. One of the things that seemed totally foreign to me was this shot of Salvor walking up to this thing sort of floating above the surface of the planet. It turns out this is the Vault, which book readers will know what that is, but I won't spoil it here. According to the showrunner, no one knows where it came from. It was there on Terminus when the colonists arrived, and it's one of the mystery boxes of the show. We'll definitely find out what's in the vault in the season, although there are other mysteries to reveal about the vault in later seasons. This is something that plays an important role in the books, but they made it look a little more dramatic instead of just being something that existed in their library. All we know is that Salvor has a very special relationship to the vault. So it turns out that she's the only person that's able to approach the object, and he continues that it has what we call a null field, which is designed to keep people away. If you try to approach it, you get headaches, you get nosebleeds, eventually you pass out. But for some reason, Salvor Hardin can walk through the null field. She can touch the vault, there's something special about her, and she has a relationship that we're going to explore over the course of the first season. And that's pretty much all the big stuff that we see in the trailer. There's a lot of cool looking shots in this with some pretty impressive graphics and special effects. It certainly looks a lot more action-packed than the beginning of the original Foundation trilogy. And we'll have to see if that's an improvement that's capable of bringing a lot of new people to the series. A lot of the initial negative takes I saw about the trailer that were coming from longtime fans of the series were along the lines of this is a completely different thing from the books, or that it was evidence that they were adapting the prequels rather than starting from the first book of the original trilogy. I wouldn't agree with either of those really. The prequels as written covered nearly 50 years of Seldon's life after he first arrived on Trantor in his 30s. To my eyes, Jared Harris looks to be the same age in all his scenes, and while there may be flashbacks, my thinking is that they're going to be extending the period of time after Gaal Dornick arrives on Trantor, which makes up the first chapter of the first book. Maybe they're dipping into the epilogue from Forward the Foundation, but at least in this, I don't see much evidence that they're adapting the two prequels in full, and I think that's probably for the best. They could be adding some of what happens on Terminus after the Foundation gets going. That's something that we don't see in the book. We get an understanding of what Hari Seldon's trying to do, and then we just jump to the period of time where it's already established there. This is where the idea of the Emperor being essentially immortal with this idea of cloning might work. One of the challenges to adapting the series always seemed like it would have been difficult to follow for viewers with a cast of characters that was always changing. TV series are built around characters that you follow for seasons. I had the initial knee-jerk reaction of this is not Foundation when I saw the clones, so I understand the sentiment of thinking that it looks completely different, but if it helps to keep some of the actors consistent, let's see what they do with it. The core is still there. Hari Seldon is still developing psychohistory and getting things ready to be put into motion before the time skips start to happen. There is one character who is still a mystery. This guy we've seen in both trailers in what looks like Trantor's heat sinks to me, and we see him running around with Gaal Dornick. They haven't revealed his name, and my best guess is that he's similar to one of the mathematicians who worked with Hari named Hugo. In Prelude to Foundation, Hari found him working as a low-level laborer in the heat sinks and realized he had a gift for mathematics. He would be rather old, this guy's obviously still young, but otherwise he just seems like he's there so that Gaal has someone playing opposite her. Why not make it a mathematician? Most of this looks pretty promising visually. It looks like they have the budget to represent what it might look like 20,000 years in the future where humans have colonized the entire galaxy. Can't say that I'm disappointed at all in the way that this looks. I guess what I'm less enthusiastic about is this sense of psychohistory bringing about revolutionary fervor. I mean, I'm down for a revolution. I'm not against that idea, but there was something unique about how things unfolded under the radar over generations in Foundation. The idea that people have to somewhat be kept in the dark about what the psychohistorical analyses predict means that it does require some faith, but it doesn't really cause a stir in the books with normal people. I realize they need to make it exciting and bring in some action for entertainment value, but I hope it doesn't lose what made the book so satisfying in the process. Salvor seems like the best example of this. The character in the books was really just clever. A badass, sure, but not in the action hero sense. He figured out what was going on around him when everyone else was paying attention to the wrong things. There was no air of him being a chosen one or anything like that. Here it seems like they added that idea pretty explicitly, and when I see the female version running around with a ragtag group of something like freedom fighters with weapons strapped on their backs, it does make me feel a little nervous. It's not that those things won't be entertaining to watch, it's just that there's already a lot of stories like that out there. That said, I've definitely argued that there would need to be some changes to make this work as a TV show. And after seeing this trailer, I'm still excited to see what they come up with. The tagline of Save Your Legacy seems a little peculiar as well. They're certainly upping the role of the Emperor, so I guess there's that angle. One of the things Asimov was interested in, though, was the idea of history repeating itself, so I'll be curious to see how they settled on the idea of legacy. And I think that's a good place to leave things. I've already made a couple other Foundation videos, so I didn't want to rehash everything that I've already covered in those. And I'll probably be making some more soon because there's a lot of different ideas kicking around in my head now that we've seen more of the footage. Let me know what you think in the comments. How do you feel about the trailer? If you want to talk book spoilers, I'm all for it, but just please mark those so that we're not giving away the big twists in the series this early. If you're interested in picking the books up, the first 3 are a quick read, and I'll have some links to those in the description. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.